Hi and welcome to Exercise 1 in your series of video tutorials for AutoCAD. Looking at the notes, basically, hopefully if you've opened up your AutoCAD, so you should have successfully downloaded, installed, clicked on the icon, and then once you get onto the main screen for AutoCAD, select New Drawing, so Start New Drawing, and you should be looking at a screen exactly the same as this. And I'll show you now how to set the thing up effectively. So if you look at item 2, press F7 or to turn the grid on. You look down here, or you can hit F7 and see what happens. But you've got a blue icon there and it says display drawing grid is on. The alternate is, if you don't want to click on icons, you just hit F7. That does the same thing and it will toggle on and off. So if I click it, you'll see it goes grey and the grid disappears. If I click it again, it goes blue and the grid's there. So if it's blue, it's on. Okay. Now next to it is the one that is referred to as F9, and you can see why it's called F9 because snap mode is F9, and the snap mode at this point is off. Now we want that on, so we click it. So both of these icons down here, both the grid and the snap, should be blue. Okay. Now there are two nasty ones on there that are good for professional draftspeople because it saves them having to do things. It's an intuitive thing. It's called Dynamic Input and Dynamic UCS. Now they help a drafter if they forget to do the mundane things like put an @ sign in when they're supposed to put an @ sign in, and it does it for you. Unfortunately, for people that are learning how to use AutoCAD, it can really mess you around. It will start putting things in and taking things out when you're trying to type them in because it thinks it knows what you want it to do. And if you're a professional drafter, it's probably pretty accurate, but for us, we're doing some weird things and it can sometimes mess you around. So let's go down to this little stack of like horizontal lines on the bottom right hand corner of the screen. The title comes up Customization. You click it. And the units we're really interested in are this one, Dynamic Input. Make sure it's checked because we want to see the icon. And we want Dynamic UCS. Make sure that one's checked. Then you can click on the screen and let's go down here and have a look. Yes, there is Dynamic Input. And you can see at the moment as the default when you first install it, it is on. That needs to be grayed out, not blue. Okay. Now if you go over it, you'll see that it says off. That's excellent. And this is the Dynamic UCS. You can see that one is also blue and on. I'm going to click that one. Just make sure both of those are grey when you start a drawing screen. Okay, if I'm starting a new drawing sheet, then they need to be greyed out. We need to do one other thing with the drawing screen right now. We need to zoom in to the virtual paper size that's been set by default. That is 12 inches by 9 inches. And that's fine for our first drawing. But to get there, we need to press Z space A, that stands for zoom, enter all, and then hit enter. And you'll see that the grid will resize a little bit. It won't be immediately obvious, but as soon as I grab something to draw with, you'll see that it jumps across in between these grid points. And these grid points are exactly ½ an inch. So it's very easy to measure across just by jumping across, and most of the early drawings are very easy numbers, like they're inches or ½ inches, so you can actually use the grid. Now the last thing we need to do before we can start drawing is make sure that we have the appropriate menus up the top here. The menus that we want are the home menu, which is the one we're on right now, the view menu, which is that one there, and then we need 3D tools and visualize. Now they're not here, and the way you get them is by right clicking on any one of these tabs, going down to tabs and clicking on 3D tools, so you check it and there it is, and then do it again, tabs and visualize, and there that one is. So now we've got these two toolbars or tool tabs at the top. We're ready to go. So first thing we need to do, go into the drawing sheet, item 8, is to select the rectangle icon in the draw menu. So you go up to this top draw menu, and over on the right at the top you'll see the rectangle icon, and click it. Now You'll notice a difference as soon as you start scrolling your cursor across the screen, because now it will jump across the grid points. That's because we got the grid set at a 1/2 inch, that's the default, and it will jump every 1/2 inch. So if we go somewhere down on screen, it doesn't have to be on that line there, it could be anywhere, say there, okay, and pull that away. We could effectively count 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, and then do the same thing going in the upright direction to get a 4x4. However, what we need to do is to use what you call an incremental command. So we do Shift and 2, gives you the @ sign, then 4, 4, and enter. That too will put a 4x4 cube on there. It doesn't matter if you got the grid on or not, because we picked a point. With the @ sign, it says go to incremental. That's what the @ sign means. And by incremental, what is meant by that is it will measure 4 inches across, comma, and then 4 inches up, comma, right? So you've got the 4x4 as you see written down there on the bottom bar. So incremental 4, 4 means from that point 4 across and then 4 up. Now if we'd have left it without the @ sign, it would have taken the 0, 0 point being there, measured 4 across and 4 up, and we'd probably end up with a little upward rectangle right there, nothing like the 4x4 square that we need. So if you do end up with some weird sort of shape, make sure you've got the @ sign in, okay? So once we got the square in, which is a 4x4 square, our next thing is to actually put the fillet command in. Now the fillet will be over here. Okay, so there's the fillet command right there. This is a toggle switch. We're going to go between fillet and the chamfer. Right, we want fillet right now. We go down to the bottom bar and read that the radius is actually set to 0 right now. So we either click this little button down here, or we can type R, enter, 1, enter. If you click the button, it will come up with the same thing. Just enter 1, then enter. Come up to this top bar here because we want the fillet in this corner. We click, left click with the mouse, and then left click again on the left hand side. You can see the fillet is ghosted in there already, and we left click to fix it. That puts the first fillet radius top left hand corner of the square. The next command we want is the chamfer command. So as I said, it's under this fillet command. So we click, go down to chamfer, so we hit the little caret, come down to chamfer and click it. It changes back to the chamfer command. Okay. Now the chamfer command requires 2 distances. Now according to our handout, we want 0.5 on the first distance and 1 on the second distance. So we're going to click on distance. Okay, it says enter the first distance. We enter 0.5, then enter. It then says specify second chamfer distance, 1, then enter. Now the next thing is pretty important that you do it in the right order, because the line you click will give you the order in which we entered those 2 figures, and the first one was 0.5. Now we want the 0.5 on this edge, okay, and then the 1 on this edge. So we click this one first, left click, and then the bottom one, left click. And that gives us our chamfer in the right orientation. If you clicked it in the other order, it would have been standing up like this. So if you've got that, you've basically clicked the lines in the wrong order. It should be the left hand line and the bottom line if you've entered the 0.5 followed by the 1. Okay, next thing to do, we want a circle on this bottom edge. So we go to the circle command, we come down to this corner, and when we're on the corner, we left click. Now we could simply just measure it up like this to do 1/2 inch, 1, 1.5, as you can see on the polar command there, 2, and we could click at that point there. What you've got to be very careful about when you're putting circles on that way is that you don't just step off to the side. Can you see how that goes slightly bigger? That's because we're measuring to the point at which it's really measuring a radius. You can see it gets larger as it gets away. So it needs to be directly above. a good way of doing it is just to enter the radius as a number. So I'm going to enter 2, then enter, and it will automatically snap it to 2 inches on the radius. So what we've got so far is we've got all these bits put on there. What we need to do is now look at putting the 2 other circles on whilst we're in the mood for doing circles. We could go up to the circle command. These circles are 1/2 inch rad, 1 inch across, but looking at the drawing, they are, or they could be measured from this bottom point. So I'm going to do the click in type thing. I'm just going to go 1, 2 like that. So these are 1/2 inch segments. So from that point there, I'm going to go 1 inch across. So it's 1 click, 2 clicks, and it's 1.5 inches up. So it's 1, 2, 3, and you can see I'm 1.5 inches up from that corner. So I click. That then puts the center of the circle down, and as they're 1 inch circles with a 1/2 inch rad, I just move across to the right, and you can see the polar is 1/2 inch on the rad. I left click directly in that position. It drops my circle where I need it. So we're going to repeat that command, circle, come to this bottom corner. This time, according to the drawing, we want to go 2.5, so that's 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5, 2 inch, 2.5, and upwards we need to go 3. So it's 1, 2, that's 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, and click. Then we just pull it across 1 square and click, and that will drop the 2 circles where they need to be. So that's all 3 circles on the drawing now, but this one here will need to be trimmed out. Okay, so I'm going to go to the trim command up the top here and click it. I'm going to come down and then hit both of the items that form the area that I want, which is around there. So it's the big square shape that we've edited and the circle. Once you've done that, we right click, and then we come down anywhere near the pieces we want to take away and left click and left click and left click. So we've just left clicked those pieces off. Okay, now hit the escape key, and that will turn it from a blue selected shape to something you can see there. Now you'll also notice that when I go over the edge of this, this is still in 2 pieces. So we're going to need to join this. We're going to need to join this outside profile. Now we will go down to this line here and type the word pedit. That's P-E-D-I-T. That's P-E-D-I-T. You can see it comes up on the list there, pedit. Now what that is a polyline edit. We created this with a square, which is in effect a polyline. So I select that polyline. Now you can see one of the options down here is join, so I'll click join. Okay, and then I'm going to select both the outside and that curve, and then right click. So I selected them both with my left click. So left click the outside, left click the arc, then right click to select it. So now what we need to do is to turn it around a little bit so we can look at it in 3D. So when we extrude it, we can actually see that the thing is extruded correctly, and then we can do our subtractions from there. Now what we can do is go over to the right hand side of the screen, and you'll see this little pop-up menu comes up. It just lights up when you get over it. So if you go to this one that looks like a little stick with an upward downward arrow and then a little twirly thing on it, orbit is what we need. So we're just going to left click on orbit. We're going to come onto screen, and we're just going to literally hold the left hand mouse key down and then tip this up so we get around about a decent 45-ish degree angle on it. Right, I'll turn around over there. Okay, you can play around basically around that pivot point. You can see the little green pivot point. It will go anywhere you really need it to go, but we only need to turn it over a little bit so we can see the actual thing extrudes. So we right click and exit. So now we need to go to one of the toolbars that we put up. We need to go to the 3D tools. If we click that, you go to the third icon in, which is extrude. You click it, come down on screen, and it says select the items to extrude. Well, that in this case is all 3. Now remember, this should be a whole single item on the outside. If it isn't, make sure you do the pedit command on it so that it is. Once we've selected with a left click all 3 items, we do a right click and then enter. Okay, you can see that if I move the cursor up and down, it's going to have a set size. I just want to move it in the upward direction, do a 0.25, so it's a 1/4 inch thick plate, and hit enter, and that will give me the thickness that I want. You can specify any size really. I just wanted it 1/4 inch thick. And now we're ready to view it. Okay, so if we go to the visualize, you can come across this little icon here, this little bar here, and click down. Okay, once you get it down, you should be able to go to something like realistic. You can look through the different types of shading, get shades of gray. They have different effects like edge effects and stuff like that. So I'm going to go to realistic. And what happened to the circles? They disappeared. They didn't really disappear. You just can't see them very well. You can see them if you hover over the center of them or on the edge of a line, but if you go back to the main body, they disappear. Now, what we're going to be doing to actually take that mass away from the other mass is virtually the same as, I don't know if you remember at school when you've done Boolean algebra, like Venn diagrams, where you get subtract, union, and intersection. We're going to do the same thing because we have this whole body on the outside, which is a mass. We've got this circle, which has a mass, and we've got that circle that has a mass. We're going to do a subtract. Okay, we're going to subtract one away from the other. Okay, so if you look up in the tools there, so 3D tools, you come across to around about middle of the way through the bar, you'll see union, subtract, and intersection. We want to hit subtract. Okay, now it will ask you what are the surfaces, solids, or regions to subtract from. Well, we select left click this outside shape. Okay, once we've done that, we right click, and immediately we're asked to come in and select any shapes like that one and that one that we want to subtract, and then we hit the right hand mouse key and bang, they're gone. Okay, now that is around about as simple as it gets. This model is now finished. If you go back to the orbit, you can now have a look around it, look underneath it, etc. Take some snapshots of it, whatever you want to do. And this item is now done. So if you've got that far, congratulations. Make sure you submit this drawing, so save it. Look at the naming protocols. So it would be X1 and your name, or your name and X1, whatever. It needs to come in with your name on. It needs to say it's exercise 1, and you submit it through Blackboard. Hope you've enjoyed doing this, and I'll see you in exercise 2.